And those comments on Mr. Reiner, they were just ugly.
I have to say that for the President of the United States to take this family tragedy in which both Reiner and his wife were killed and say that it's because of Trump derangement syndrome, I thought was well beneath him and beneath the office.
There's a time and a place for politics and for trolling. A man being viciously murdered along with his wife, allegedly at the hand of their own son, is not that time or that place.
Yeah, when Fox News, the network that has put out takes like, let's just euthanize the homeless, and Mamdani means there will be a 9/11 sequel, is out here calling out your comments for being too extreme, then you know you're a monster in a league of your own. After news broke that beloved Hollywood legend Rob Reiner and his wife Michelle were tragically murdered in their own home, the man in charge of this country thought it was a good time to make it about himself and the fact that Reiner was a staunch critic of his.
Please. Mr. President, a number of Republicans have denounced your statement on Truth Social after the murder of Rob Reiner. Do you stand by that post?
Well, I wasn't a fan of his at all. He was a deranged person as far as Trump is concerned. He said he knew it was false. In fact, it's the exact opposite, that I was a friend of Russia, controlled by Russia. You know, it was the Russia hoax. He was one of the people behind it. I think he hurt himself in career-wise. He became like a deranged person, Trump derangement syndrome. So I was not a fan of Rob Reiner at all in any way, shape, or form. I thought he was very bad for our country. Yeah.
And after that, the same people who wanted Americans fired for sharing Charlie Kirk memes were now forced to perform verbal gymnastics to excuse the utterly vile words. But you know what? It was a bridge too far for some. I mean, several Republicans broke ranks with the majority of their party to call it out.
Do you condemn Trump's post about Rob Reiner?
What are your thoughts about what President Trump said about Rob Reiner at his press conference today?
I don't do ongoing commentary about everything that's said by everybody in government every day.
We are the President of the United States.
We are trying to bring down healthcare costs for the American people. They're very important votes, very important issues, and that's what we're focused on.
A lot of your members are criticizing him.
I gave commentary this morning, and you all heard it. Thank you.
But you know what? It was a bridge too far for some. I mean, several Republicans broke ranks with the majority of their party to call it out, as well as Fox News, of all places. That's right. A panel discussion, which was helmed by Brett Barr, featured a consensus that was mutual. The president's comments were despicable.
His wife being killed in their home in Los Angeles. You have interviewed Rob Reiner before.
Yeah, and I got to know him a little bit, and he, tremendously successful movie actor, director, son of the comedy legend Carl Reiner, and yet there was an everyman quality about him. He hung out at the same Santa Monica restaurants that everybody else did, and he was a mensch, and he spoke out and denounced the murder of Charlie Kirk and had very gracious things to say about his widow, Erica. Now, there's no secret. I sparred with him about this on the air in the first term that Rob Reiner was a very liberal Democrat who had very strong criticism of President Trump. And yet, I have to say that for the President of the United States to take this family tragedy in which both Reiner and his wife were killed and say that it's because of Trump derangement syndrome, I thought was well beneath him and beneath the office. And I think it would have been better if the president had made no comment.
Turning Point's posting that guy. Meantime, there are Trump supporters out posting criticism. Robbie Starbuck, he's a conservative, a supporter of the president. What happened last night to Rob Reiner and his wife was a savage butchering of two human lives. I don't care what their politics were or how they felt about Trump. No law-abiding human deserves this. We should pray for and send condolences to his loved ones and not make it political. Here's Senator John Kennedy.
I don't think the president should have commented. When the president says this kind of stuff, it detracts from his policy achievements and from his agenda.
So he's getting pushback, Guy.
As he should. There's a time and a place for politics and for trolling. A man being viciously murdered along with his wife, allegedly at the hand of their own son, is not that time or that place. And for the president to have put this out the way that he did achieves nothing and reflects poorly.
As Zeph, he did put it out, and then he was asked about it and said basically the same thing publicly.
Yeah, Trump has continued to double down on his comments despite, hearing from lawmakers on both sides of the aisle who have been pretty clear in condemning the president's tone. And it is unfortunate to have the president of the United States taking a tragedy like this and inserting politics into a situation as sad as the one that led to the Reiner's death, especially after the year we've had, especially after, political violence has been such a big issue this year, whether it was the killing of the state lawmakers in Minnesota earlier this year to the killing of Charlie Kirk. This has been a conversation. So it is unfortunate, especially after a weekend of so much tragic news, that we would hear from the president of the United States and that he would decide to insert politics into this discussion.
We'll see where it goes from here.
Now, as I said yesterday, right? Anyone who acted surprised was doing so willfully. This is the man who burst onto the political scene mocking a disabled reporter. He has always been a bottomless pit of misery and despair, an utter egomaniac that sees any tragedy as a political opportunity to divert the focus to where he really wants it to be, which is on himself. The fact that fellow Republicans are unable to rinse the taste of snake oil is, of course, indicative of what we are seeing. That appears that Donald Trump is losing support even among the most magnified members of the Republican Party and voters.
Well, Brianna, a number of Republican lawmakers have started to criticize President Donald Trump over these posts that he made relating to the death of Rob Reiner and his wife, Michelle Singer Reiner. We have heard from both centrist and conservative lawmakers who have said the president crossed the line with these types of comments. Wrong, regardless of one's political views, no one should be subjected to violence, let alone at the hands of their own son. It's a horrible tragedy that should engender sympathy and compassion from everyone in our country, period. Lawler is one of the president's closest allies up here on Capitol Hill. We've also heard from Marjorie Taylor Greene, who has recently become more critical of the president, who wrote, "This is a family tragedy, not about politics or political enemies." Then you have Congressman Thomas Massie, also someone who is frequently critical of this White House, saying, regardless of how you felt about Rob Reiner, this is inappropriate and disrespectful discourse about a man who was just brutally murdered. He challenged some of his Republican colleagues to come up with some explanation to defend the president here, but so far it doesn't seem like that has happened.
There is, of course, his very public dispute with Marjorie Taylor Greene, but also a recent poll taken shows his support among Republicans cratering also.
Okay, you know what, Donald Trump, I'm going to borrow a quote from my favorite Rocky film, Rocky IV. He's not a machine. He's not a machine. He's a man. He's a man. And what are we talking about here? Strongly approve of Donald Trump. Okay, this is 2024 Trump voters. In March, it was 66%. Look at where we are now. It's just 50% of 2024 Trump voters strongly approve of him. Look, Trump voters still like Donald Trump, but they don't love him as much. And that means there's a permission structure to actually go against him. And that is exactly what you saw in Indiana.
And as I've said, and actually Rob Reiner put it perfectly in a recent interview he conducted, this is more likely down to the fact that there are economic repercussions at the hands of Mr. Arthur the Deal.
It's going to take a long time to rebuild the shining city on the hill, the beacon to the rest of the world. You go to outside of our country, and I've been out in the UK and other places. They don't know what the hell's happening in America. They don't understand what's happening. This used to be the place that welcomed immigrants, that welcomed people, and it was our strength. The diversity was our strength. And now it's looked upon as it's people are being thrown out of the country without due process. It's nightmarish what's happening in America. And hopefully people will be able to see that. Unfortunately, voters, they only feel when it hits them personally in the pocketbook. But when they feel that, which they're going to start to feel, and they also feel their rights being taken away, it may start to change things, but hopefully it's not too late.
No amount of repulsive rhetoric will sway most Trump sycophants in the way a light wallet will. But him losing support is still him losing support. And it's important to highlight, because when Fox News are calling out your rhetoric and Republican lawmakers and voters alike are heading for the exit, it only further reiterates what many of us have been awake to from the beginning. He is unfit to lead. I mean, he's unfit to be a human, clearly, which this response goes to show. But most importantly, he is failing beyond the pale to lead this country.
And let me just say this, unlike some people, Rob and Michelle Reiner are some of the most decent, courageous people you ever want to know. They're not deranged or crazed. What they have always been are passionate people in a time when there's not a lot of courage going on. They were the kind of people who were ready to put their actions behind what they cared about. And they cared about their family, and they cared about this country, and they cared about fairness and equity. And that is the truth. I do know them.
Love this video? Support independent media and unlock exclusive content, ad-free videos, and custom emojis by becoming a paid member of our YouTube channel today. You can also gift memberships to others. Let's keep growing together.